Once upon a time in a small village, there lived a kind-hearted girl named Rachael. Rachel's mother had passed away when she was just a baby, leaving her in the care of her loving father, Thomas. To ensure that Rachel had a motherly figure, Thomas remarried a woman named Ruth, who had a daughter of her own named Mercy. At first, Rachel hoped that Ruth and Mercy would become a new family and love her as her mother did. However, Ruth was a cruel woman who despised Rachel from the very beginning. She would often say mean things and make Rachel do all the chores around the house. Mercy, who was almost the same age as Rachel, watched her mother and learned to be mean to Rachel too. Rachel's father, Thomas, worked very hard in the fields every day. He loved Rachel dearly, but did not know how badly Ruth and Mercy treated her when he was not around. Ruth would beat Rachel for the smallest of mistakes, and sometimes even for no reason at all. Rachel's heart was heavy with sadness, but she did not complain because she did not want to trouble her father. One sunny afternoon, while Rachel was cleaning the house, she accidentally broke a small vase. It was an old vase that Ruth doesn't really care about, but when she heard the sound of it breaking, she rushed into the room with fury in her eyes. "You useless girl," Ruth screamed. "You can't do anything right. How dare you break my vase?" "I am sorry, ma," Rachel said softly, tears welling up in her eyes. "It was an accident. I don't mean to." But Ruth did not care. She grabbed the stick and hit through Rachel until her arms and legs were bruised and sore. Mercy watched from the corner of the room, smacking. Rachel limped to her small room in the attic and sat on her bed, holding her bruised arms. She felt so lonely and wished her mother was still alive. She cried silently, not wanting her father to hear her pain. She knew he was tired after a long day of work and did not want to add to his worries. One night, while Rachel was lying in bed, she heard a soft whisper. "Rachel, Rachel," it called. She looked around, frightened but curious. The voice seemed to be coming from outside her window. Gathering her courage, she got up and peered outside. There, in the moonlight, she saw a beautiful bird with shimmering feathers. "Do not be afraid, Rachael," the bird said. "I am here to help you. I know how much you suffer at the hands of your stepmother and stepsister." Rachael was amazed and a little scared. "Who are you?" she asked in a whisper. "I am a spirit sent by your mother," the bird replied. "She watches over you from the heavens and sees all that you go through. She sent me to give you strength and hope." Rachel felt a warmth in her heart, knowing that her mother was still watching over her. "Thank you," she said to the bird. "What should I do?" "Be patient and kind," the bird said. "No matter how much they hurt you, do not let anger fill your heart. Your kindness will be rewarded one day. And remember, you are never alone." With that, the bird flew away, leaving Rachel with a renewed sense of hope. She decided to follow the bird's advice and remain kind and patient, even when Ruth and Mercy are at their worst. One day, while Rachel was fetching water from the river, she met an old woman sitting by the river bank. The woman looked tired and hungry, and Rachel, feeling pity for her, offered her some bread and water. "Thank you, my dear," the old woman said with a smile. "You have a kind heart. May good fortune come your way." Rachel smiled back, feeling happy to have helped somebody in need. Little did she know that this encounter would change her life forever. As the days turned into weeks, Rachel continued to endure the cruelty of her stepmother and stepsister. But she also remembered the bird's word and tried her best to stay kind and patient. Every night, she would look out her window, hoping to see the bird again, but it never returned. One evening, A royal messenger came to the village with exciting news. The prince of the land was looking for a bride, and he had invited all the young maidens to a grand ball at the palace. Ruth and Mercy were overjoyed, believing that Mercy will win the prince's heart and become a princess. "Rachael, you will help us prepare," Ruth commanded. "And don't ever think about attending the ball. You will stay home and clean the house." Rachael nodded quietly, hiding her disappointment. She had always dreamed of going to the palace and seeing the prince, but she knew Ruth would never allow it. The day of the ball arrived, and the house was bustling with excitement. Rachael helped Mercy get ready, brushing her hair and tying her dress. Mercy looked beautiful, but her heart was filled with jealousy and spite. "Don't you dare step foot in that palace," Mercy sneered. "You belong here with the dust and dirt." Ruth and Mercy left for the ball, leaving Rachael alone in the house. She sat by the fireplace, feeling sad and lonely. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Rachael opened it and saw the old woman she had helped by the river. "Good evening, Rachael," the old woman said, with a twinkle in her eyes. "I heard there is a grand ball at the palace tonight. Why aren't you there?" Rachael sighed. "My stepmother won't allow me go. She said I have to stay here and clean." The old woman smiled warmly. "Don't worry, my dear. Tonight, you shall go to the ball." With a wave of her hand, the old woman transformed into the beautiful bird Rachael had seen before. The bird fluttered its wings, and Rachael's tattered clothes turned into a stunning gown. Her hair was elegantly styled, and on her feet was a sparkling glass slippers. "Now, go to the ball," the bird said. "But remember, you must return before midnight, for the magic will wear off." Rachael could hardly believe her eyes. She thanked the bird and hurried to the palace, her heart pounding with excitement. When Rachael arrived at the palace, everybody turned to look at her. She was the most beautiful maiden they have ever seen. The prince himself was captivated by her beauty and grace. He asked her to dance, and they twirled around the grand ball, laughing and talking as if they had known each other forever. Ruth and Mercy watched in disbelief, not recognizing Rachael in a magical disguise. They sat with jealousy as the prince paid all his attention to the mysterious girl. Rachael was having the time of her life, but she remembered the bird's warning. As the clock neared midnight, she excused herself and hurried out of the palace. The prince called after her, but she disappeared into the night, leaving behind one of her glass slippers. The next morning, the whole village was bustling with excitement. News spread quickly that the prince has fallen in love with a mysterious maiden at the ball, and he was determined to find her. He had sent his men to search every home in the village, carrying the glass slippers that Rachael had left behind. At Rachael's home, Ruth and Mercy were still foaming from the previous night. Ruth could not believe that someone else had caught the prince's eyes, while Mercy was sulking because she had been ignored by the prince. "Mother, we must find a way to make the prince choose me," Mercy whined. "I must be the one to marry him." "Don't worry, my dear," Ruth said, a sly smile spreading across her face. "We will make sure that you get to try on the slipper and become the prince's bride." Just then, there was a knock at the door. It was the prince's men carrying the glass slipper. "Good morning," the leader of the men said. "We are here on behalf of the prince to find the maiden who fits the slipper. May we come in?" "Of course," Ruth said sweetly, hiding her true nature. "Please, come in. My daughter Mercy will be happy to try on the slipper." Mercy eagerly sat down, holding out her foot, but no matter how hard she tried, the slipper would not fit. It was too small for her foot. "Are there any other young maiden in the house?" the leader asked. "No, there are no other," Ruth lied. only mercy. Just as the men were about to leave, Rachael came into the room, her heart pounding. She had been listening from her small attic room and knew this was her chance. "Wait," she cried out. "May I try on the slipper?" Ruth's face turned pale with anger, but she couldn't stop Rachael in front of the prince's men. The leader looked at Rachael and nodded. "Of course," he said. Rachael sat down and gently slipped her foot into the glass slipper. It fits perfectly. The men were amazed, and they knew they had found the prince's beloved. "Please, come with us to the palace," the leader said. "The prince will be overjoyed to see you." Rachael nodded, her heart filled with joy. She quickly changed into a simple dress and followed the men to the palace. Ruth and Mercy watched in shock and anger as Rachael left. When Rachael arrived at the palace, the prince was waiting for her. His face lighted up with happiness when he saw her. "You are the one I have been looking for," he said, taking her hand. "Will you marry me and become my princess?" Rachael's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Yes," she said softly, "I will be honored." The prince and Rachael were married in a grand ceremony, and the whole kingdom celebrated their union. Rachael's life had changed overnight, and she was finally free from the cruelty of her stepmother and stepsister. But Rachael's kindness did not stop there. She knew that Ruth and Mercy were still back in the village, and despite everything they had done to her, she felt pity for them. She asked the prince if she could invite them to the palace, hoping to mend their breaking relationships. The prince agreed, and a message was sent to Ruth and Mercy, inviting them to the palace. They arrived, looking nervous and ashamed. "Rachael, we are so sorry for everything," Ruth said, tears in her eyes. "We were wrong to treat you so badly. Please forgive us," Mercy added, her voice trembling. Rachael looked at them, her heart full of compassion. "I forgive you," she said gently, "but you must promise to change and be kind to others." "We promise," Ruth and Mercy said in unison. Rachael's life at the palace was filled with happiness and love. She and the prince ruled the kingdom with fairness and kindness, and the people loved them dearly. But Rachael never forgot her humble beginning or the lessons she had learned. She continued to help those in need and remained a shining example of kindness and compassion. One day, as Rachael was walking in the palace gardens, she saw the beautiful bird that had helped her before. It perched on the branch and looked at her with wise eyes. "You have done well, Rachael," the bird said. "Your mother will be proud of you." "Thank you," Rachael said, smiling. "I couldn't have done it without your help." "Remember, kindness and patience are powerful virtues," the bird said. "They can transform even the darkest of hearts." With that, the bird flew away, leaving Rachael feeling peaceful and content. She knew that her mother's spirit was always with her, guiding her and giving her strength. Rachael continued to live a life of love and kindness, and her story was told throughout the kingdom for generations. She was a true princess, not just by birth, but by the goodness of her heart. Ruth's apology was fleeting, her heart still blackened by envy and greed. She couldn't stand to see Rachael, whom she had tormented for so long, now living as a beloved princess. Determined to change her daughter's Mercy's fate, she began scheming to turn the prince against Rachael and make him fall in love with Mercy. One evening, while Rachael and the prince were having dinner, Ruth sneaked into the kitchen. She bribed the servant to add a special portion to Rachael's drink, one that would make her seem ill-tempered and unpleasant. The servant, feeling sorry for Rachael, but fearing Ruth's wrath, reluctantly did as told. As Rachael sipped her drink, she began to feel strange. Her head spun, and her words slurred. She accidentally knocked over a glass, causing it to shatter on the floor. "Rachael, are you all right?" the prince asked, concern etched in his face. I don't feel well," Rachael murmured, swaying in her seat. The prince helped Rachael to her room, where she fell into a restless sleep. Ruth watched from the shadows, a sinister smile on her lips. In the day that followed, Ruth continued to sabotage Rachael. She spread rumors among the palace staff, claiming that Rachael was unfit to be a princess. She even planted false evidence like torn clothes and broken vases to make it seem like Rachael was clumsy and irresponsible. Despite Ruth's efforts, the prince remained steadfast in his love for Rachael. He saw through the lies and refused to believe the rumors. He knew the kind, gentle woman he had fallen in love with, and no amount of trickery could change his mind. Ruth, growing desperate, decided to take a more direct approach. She invited the prince to a private meeting, pretending to have important news about the kingdom. "Your Highness," Ruth began, bowing low, "I have come to warn you about Rachael. She is not who you seems. She hides a dark side, one that will bring ruin to your reign." The prince narrowed his eyes. "What are you saying, Ruth?" "I have seen her true nature," Ruth continued, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "She is deceitful and manipulative. She only married you for power and wealth." The prince's face grew stern. "I find that hard to believe. Rachael has always been kind and honest. What proof do you have for these accusations?" Ruth produced a small box filled with trinkets she had stolen from the palace, presenting them as evidence of Rachael's supposed theft. "These were found in Rachael's room," she lied. "She had been stealing from you, Your Highness." The prince took the box and examined its contents. His expression was unreadable, and Ruth felt a surge of triumph. But then he looked up, his eyes cold. "I know these items," he said calmly. "They were taken from the palace storage, where only you have access. I find it more likely that you planted them to frame Rachael." Ruth's face paled. "Your Highness, Enough," the prince interrupted. "I have had enough. You have done nothing but spread lies and deceit. You and your daughter will leave the palace at once." Ruth tried to protest, but the prince's decision was final. Guards escorted her and Mercy out of the palace, their face filled with shame and anger. Rachael, now free from her stepmother's machinations, felt a sense of relief. She thanked the prince for believing in her and stood by his side stronger and more confident than ever. However, Ruth was not one to give up easily. She and Mercy moved to a nearby village, where Ruth plotted her next move. She gathered a group of unsavory characters, promising them wealth and power if they help her overthrow the prince and place Mercy on the throne. One dark night, Ruth and her accomplice sneaked into the palace. They planned to kidnap Rachael and force the prince to abdicate. But as they crept through the halls, a shimmering light appeared before them. It was a beautiful bird, his feathers glowing with a radiant light. "Stop," the bird commanded, its voice echoing through the hall. "You will not harm Rachael or the prince." Ruth and her accomplice were frozen in place, unable to move. The bird flapped its wings, and a gust of wind blew them out of the palace, scattering them far and wide. Ruth and Mercy were sent to a distant land, never to trouble Rachael again. The next morning, the prince and Rachael woke to find the palace peaceful and safe. The bird appeared before them, his eyes filled with wisdom and kindness. "Rachael, you have shown great strength and compassion," the bird said. "Your mother's spirit is proud of you. Continue to rule with love and fairness, and the kingdom will prosper." Rachael and the prince thanked the bird, promising to heed his advice. Under their rule, the kingdom flourished, becoming a haven of peace and prosperity. Rachael's stories of kindness and resilience spread far and wide, inspiring many to follow her example. As the years passed, Rachael and the prince had children of their own. They taught them the value of kindness, patience, and forgiveness. And every night, Rachael would tell them the story of the beautiful bird and how it had helped her become the princess she was. Though Ruth and Mercy were gone, their tales served as a reminder that evil never triumphs over good. Rachael's legacy lived on, a testament to the power of a kind heart and an indomitable spirit. I am sure you have learned something from this video and you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Kindly give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more interesting contents like this. Don't forget to comment what you think about the story below, and wait, do me a favor, share this video to your friends. They might love to watch it too. Thank you once again and see you in the next video.